What is up, everybody? Welcome here to the Half-Ass Pod. It's your boy Corn, and over here, ladies and gentlemen, we have Smith. Smith, say what's up to the people, man.
What's up, people? There you go.
And down here, we have the author, the creator, the editor, the end-all be-all of not only Walter Paisley Cafe, but Spadal. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Plaid. Mark, say what's up to the people, man.
Hey, everybody, how you doing? If you're out there live, I want to see some comments in the comments. Yeah, just go ahead. I don't know, do something like who do you think would play me in a movie? You know, just go ahead, whatever. You know, I know it's not going to be any good. I'm ready.
Mark, that was random as hell, bro. but good thing we're here on a half-ass pod because that's what we do. We do randomness and rabbit holes, so we're all good here. So today we are going to be reviewing the 1990, the original version of Jacob's Ladder, starring Tim Robbins. This movie, before we get into it, and you know, Smith's gonna kind of guide us onto exactly what the plot was of this movie. I want to say what I thought I was going into with this movie was completely different than what the actual movie was. And let me tell you something, I was actually pretty fucking satisfied with what I was getting throughout this movie. Now we're gonna get more into the depths of what exactly happened in the movie because the ending kind of left me scratching my head a little bit. But we'll get more into that. But Smith, take it away. What exactly was this movie about, Jacob's Ladder?
Well, I think I'll give the exposition. I'll go as far as I need to before we spoil the whole review. So opening scene, we start with a Vietnam. You know, there's some soldiers out there, they're talking, and then all of a sudden a fight breaks out, and it turns out to be a flashback from our main character, Jacob Singer, who wakes up out of a bad dream, essentially, in his New York apartment. They're in New York, right?
Yeah, New York. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. And he's got his girlfriend there, the name of Jezebel. She goes by Jezzy.
Who, by the way, was hot as shit.
She, you know, she's a butterface, but whatever.
Man.
So we get going, and he's mourning the loss of his former wife. So she would be the ex-wife now, and also the loss of his son, his youngest son, who was played by Kevin McAllister. So I thought that was pretty nice. So the whole time we're going through this, he's got seemingly PTSD, psychosis. So he's seeing figures, and eventually he meets an old buddy from the army who's seeing the same things, and the story picks up from there. Should I go further, or do you want to?
Oh yeah, you can go further if you want. Yeah.
So it's a very weird thing because there's a lot of flashbacks that were in and out. Stuff happens, and it's almost like it didn't happen because you're really going through his perspective of the whole ordeal. So from the outside, people must think he was fucking crazy, or I don't even know. Should I go all the way to the end? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll stop there then. That's the outline of it.
So pretty much, because I really want to get you guys' thoughts on this because I don't know if I'm alone on this or what, but man, while I was still interested in the movie and while I was still going through different emotions throughout this movie, because I really was not expecting to actually just based off of what I read, the synopsis of the movie when you mentioned to me last week, Smith. I was thinking again, it was, I knew that I was going to have to be, using my head. I was going to have to pay attention to every single detail. But even then, man, this movie was just by the end of the movie, I'm like, wait a minute. What the fuck happened? Mm-hmm. We know he died. They gave us that one. They threw us that bone. But which part of his life was real? Which part of his life actually happened? Or was this happening in conjunction? But again, if his life was happening like that in conjunction together, let's say he was with his wife, they got divorced, because they did talk about the divorce when he was with what's her name? Old girl. Jezebel.
Sarah.
So
Sarah.
Yeah.
So, Sarah's the wife.
Yeah, Sarah's the wife. And he was talking about her when he was with Jezebel. That's why I was like, okay, all right. But then you get halfway through this movie, and I don't want to I don't want to expose every single scene in just this one small little rant that I'm doing. But you get to the point where he's in bed then with his wife, or I guess divorced, ex-wife, Sarah, and it's like, all right, so they're clearly together, but then he starts talking about the dream or the nightmare that he had where he was with Jezebel. And that's why I was like, oh, this is like, and that was like that had to be like the halfway point to the movie, right?
Yeah,
so
just about.
At that point, I'm like, oh shit, like I did not see that shit coming. So I'm like, which part is real? Which part is the part that actually, I mean, all of it matters, obviously, but which part is the one that actually is, I guess, in this case, don't kill me for saying this, but which part is canon? You know what I mean? Like which part is the actual one that matters? But Mark, I heard you say earlier when I was fidgeting with my fucking shitty fucking computer, I heard you say earlier that this was also your first time watching this movie.
Yep.
So I kind of want to know your thoughts. At least, what was your first thought after finishing this movie?
Oh, wow. Well, this is a movie I would classify as, well, what I call a mindfuck. And that almost is never a bad term for me, from me, because movies that I think are mindfucks, usually are movies that I like, like Pie and Eraserhead, or pretty much anything by David Lynch, things like that, where these movies are, they play with you psychologically. They kind of keep you guessing. They take you around, all over the place. Sometimes they wrap things up, sometimes they don't, and often, what is wrapped up needed to be, what is left open is needed to be. And I would put this film in that category. I think that it was it kept me at the edge of my seat, and it didn't insult my intelligence. I don't necessarily have the same opinion of some of the people that were quoted in the Wikipedia article I read about what they thought of the film and what it said about death and things like that. However, in my defense, it's I think it's just open to interpretation. So although I didn't have the same viewing they did, I think that's kind of the point.
I think that this movie gave us a lot of it definitely gave me a lot of, I wouldn't even say anxiety per se, but it definitely gave me a lot of like, all right, what is going to happen next? But not in a sense of like, ooh, I can't wait to see what happens. It's like, oh shit. Because once you learn about that part where he's talking about his son, Macaulay Culkin's character, I think what was the son's name? Like Gabe or something like that, Gabriel or something like that. So like when he's talking about his son, and you can see where like as soon as Jezebel even mentions his son, and she's like, I think she said like your dead son or your dead kid or something like that, and then he instantly just a single tear came out. I was like, okay, there's something there. There's something that they're gonna come back to that, because that was they made sure that in that scene that was the most important part that you were supposed to hear. At least that's what they made it seem, right? Obviously, we're talking about a movie that's more of a deeper thinking movie, right? So then you go on and continue on into this movie, and then you see like a few scenes later the dynamic and the relationship between Tim Robbins, Jacob, and his son, and it's like fuck, like that one fucked me up too. Like that one, I'm sitting there like, god damn, man, they're really doing this in this movie. Like that's crazy. And then obviously, as we go on into the movie, you start seeing more deeper and deeper shit. Smith, you've seen this movie before, obviously, because you recommend it. But after watching this, I don't know how many times you've seen this, but after watching this, I don't know if it was today or whatever, but most recently, what was your thought?
Well, I watched it again earlier today on my lunch. So, and then I finished like the rest of it right before this, and that's probably the third time I've viewed it. But I can say that the first time is really magical, because now I know what's going to fucking happen. So it's like you're sitting there like, okay, so treasure the first viewing of this fucking movie, because it doesn't get better.
Oh, you said it doesn't?
It doesn't get better. No, like after rewatching it, it's just because you already know what's coming. So it's like going through the rigmarole. It's like one of those videos, one of those movies. Sorry.
It has to make me think that how this film could be pulled off in the day of the internet. I mean, they say that about The Sixth Sense, where they couldn't have pulled off a surprise ending like that. With the way everybody talks about movies on the internet, that those kind of spoilers would be gone. I don't know if this movie is necessarily a bunch of spoilers, but I mean, or like dependent on not giving away spoilers, but well, I mean, in a way, I think it would be, because I mean, if you start knowing what's going on before you even watch it, then it takes away. I think that's the one of the strongest aspects of this film is to keep you guessing.
Yeah, I agree. When you're sitting down watching a movie like this, you definitely do not want to be fucking spoiled. Like you don't want to sit with that one friend that's literally going to tell you everything that happens and be like, hey, watch out for this. Hey, watch out. Like you just kind of maybe want to sit by yourself, or at least sit with somebody that can also watch a movie without talking, and kind of just, go through scene by scene and kind of figure it out. And and you're learning along the way. Like this isn't a kind of movie where you're trying to solve problems necessarily, but it's a movie that's just revealing more of itself to you, to where you can actually understand the entire story. My only problem with this is I don't understand the entire fucking story. And I felt like they spelled out enough to me throughout this movie, but I also felt like I needed just a little bit more spelling out from this movie, because while every part of the story makes sense, the story as a whole, once the movie finally ends, I'm like, again, like I'm sitting there scratching my head, like, yes, that was amazing, because this movie tugged at my emotions. I don't even know how the fuck it even did it, because if you were to put this shit on paper and say, okay, a man loses son, he's dealing with that. Then he's dealing with, is he even alive or not? It's just like the different scenes to me, and we'll get more into this when we talking about like our favorite scenes and shit. But I do want to say the different scenes to me where they kept telling him that he was dead and that he was going to die, and that, between hell and all this, I'm like, bro, every single scene, I'm like, okay, they're clearly telling us that this guy is gonna die. It's just, imagine for 1 second, just imagine putting yourself in this guy's shoes. Because I do that when I watch movies. I kind of sometimes, not all the time, obviously, but actually I would even go as far as saying at least half the time I put myself in one character's shoes when I'm watching a movie. And it's like, if you put yourself in Jacob's shoes while watching this movie, it's gonna fuck you up. It's gonna fuck you up, because every scene, just damn near every scene in the middle of the movie, there's clues that you're going to die. This is gonna happen. Like, remember that part where he gets taken by those people, right? And they strap him up and they hook him up to that thing, and then they obviously fuck with his head and shit. The flashbacks that were happening in this movie, where they were in Vietnam, right? And the flashbacks of this movie, of the wartime, and then back to where he's like laying on that table and shit like that. That one to me, where I was like, okay, this has to do with what they're doing out there in Vietnam. They had to partake in something. So this entire time I'm thinking, like, before obviously it got revealed to us that, hey, it's a drug that they were given and all of a sudden they all killed each other, whatever. This entire time before that, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, maybe they stumbled upon something and they got exposed, maybe something extraterrestrial, like I'm thinking a million things at this point, right? When he's laying energy. But then I'm like, all right, it makes sense once it gets revealed that, they took, the drugs, or they were given the drugs, and then they all killed each other. Which again, and I want to mention another part too. And that part is, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's a dude that pretty much tells him everything about the ladder and everything else. That guy was only in this movie for what, 5 minutes maybe?
Yeah.
But Jesus fucking Christ. Once again, you're going to hear that a lot tonight. He tugged at my fucking emotions. Because I'm saying, dude was like, he legit fucking like felt horrible about the shit that he had to do. I mean, think about putting yourself in this guy's shoes. You know what I mean? Like this guy's, making drugs or experimenting with drugs, selling them, whatever. And then he said, what, back in 68 or some shit like that. And then, they come to him, I think, hours after he was arrested and put in jail, and they're like, "Hey, we will get rid of your 20-year or however many years sentence if you come and work for the government." I think for what, 2 years? I think they said, or 2 months or some shit, right?
2 years.
2 years. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, most humans would probably trade 20 years in jail or prison, whatever, for 2 years in the military. And not even being in a lab and obviously doing some fucked up shit, obviously. But you listen to that, you hear that, you might trade that too. But that part right there, where he was breaking down and he was like, man, I watched we experimented on the monkeys. I watched the monkeys fucking kill each other, tear off their tail, all kinds of shit. And then he's like, then we started giving them to, then he said he gave them what, teens or kids or something like that?
Yeah.
And then watched them
to the Vietnamese POWs.
Oh, yeah, the POWs. That's right. Yeah. And he said, the only reason why, because he said kids. And that's why I was like, huh? But, yeah. And then, he said that they killed each other. And then they said that they went ahead and experimented on a whole fucking company or platoon. Did he say platoon or the company? Either way, they explored on American soldiers. I mean, experimented on American soldiers. That part to me, I was like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, oh, okay, now we see what they're doing. So once we get to that reveal that they're using these drugs to experiment not only on monkeys, not only on other humans, but on their own fucking soldiers. How did you guys feel after that? After that whole reveal? Smith, I'll start with you.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
It probably is. It probably did happen, like that little thing at the end there. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised. It says for those who haven't seen it, but it talks about the drug, right? BZ. And the Pentagon denies using it. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. It was probably just like a meth substitute, just like how every other war we fought, we've used like amphetamines. Basically, the Nazis did it. We did it. But yeah, it's pretty fucked up shit, honestly. If they really had a drug that could make you more violent, it would be something. Violent like that, like the way they described it in the film. I can't remember that guy's name. Who told him?
Yeah, me either. Fuck, I think it was like Michael or something.
On IMDb, it
might be up there. About the chemist?
Yeah. What's his name?
Okay, yeah, I don't remember the name, but yeah, I just I wanted to be sure it wasn't, because for some reason I was also thinking about the guy that was in the pool hall with him, but because that was just another thing of
the guy that got blown up, right? Yeah.
Which of course, Jacob was taken away from the explosion by the chemist. So
yeah. But Mark, I'll throw the question over to you now. What was your thought after that? That I guess we would call it turn of events or that reveal.
Well, I mean, let's see. That was a good, that was about what, at the halfway point of the. I mean,
that was probably almost the end. That was like
that was a reveal very later on. So, because of course I just thought, okay, this is the reveal point. This is where, the plot might be starting to come together. However, given the ending, it's interesting how that could be interpreted. But of course, given the very ending where they flash a title card that says it was based on these ideas from the drug BZ, it's kind of funny how I would have thought about that movie had that title card not have been posted at the end, because that might have put the actual drugging of the soldiers into question, given that at the end we see Jacob pretty much being taken care of by medical people, and I do believe it was in Vietnam. It was like in a like one of those MASH tents or whatever. And so yeah, under that assumption, I would just say, well, okay, and then he dies. Now, so to me, it was like, well, anything that pretty much happens after his death either could be interpreted as, well, that wasn't real. It was something that his mind was doing. Like this, like, so for me, it's like some of the people said, oh, this is about the afterlife and things like that. Well, I went the more scientific route, as I'm prone to do, where I thought about how, people can have sort of these visions as their brain is shutting down towards death. And your brain is dying, it's being deprived of oxygen, things like this. So your mind can go in probably all kinds of directions. And maybe anything that was supposed to happen post-Vietnam was just his mind shutting down rather than any actual events. So given that interpretation, he wasn't even told about the drug. That was just something fabricated by his own mind.
It's amazing when that happens, though. I gotta say, it's amazing when you have a movie, and sometimes it pisses me off. Like after watching that movie, and I'm like, and I didn't do any research after watching it because I just didn't have any time. But like after watching that movie, I'm like, dude, like it kind of pissed me off, and I'm like, how do we get the answers? Like, how do we fully know what was like true and like what happened in this movie and what did it? What was his own imagination? And like you said, this whole thing could have been his imagination. Like I will say this, by the way, I almost did LSD and watched this movie. I'm so glad I didn't fucking do that.
Wow.
I would have been freaking the fuck out. But I will say, in between the parts where he was talking in between characters, like in between Jezebel and Sarah, those two characters, right? As well as once, and I'm glad you harped on this too, where he was talking to old dude, the chemist, that said, hey, this is all pretty much, my fault. And like, at least I was one of the people behind this whole thing, right? You add that in there. Now I'm kind of thinking to myself, could all of this have been just because you do hear the rumors? Now, I wouldn't say rumors, but you do hear like, I guess, I don't even know what you call them, myths, rumors, whatever you want to call them. But some people do say like when you die, and depending on how you die, like your brain is still functioning a little bit. What if, and they say that, your whole life flashes before your eyes and shit like that. So it's just like, maybe this dude was pretty much dead the whole time. And all of this shit happened like smack right there when he died on the field, or when he was dying on the field. And obviously they were carrying him and everything. I was like, all of that has been in my mind, but like the part where it's like, maybe all of this was in a matter of seconds or minutes. This entire movie was. That's crazy. I mean, because he did mention that that his son, the son that died, that his son did die before he left for Vietnam, right?
Yes.
Didn't he say that?
Yes.
So I mean, all of this could have been in his mind. Like all of this could have been like, none of it could have been real except for the Vietnam part. But again, like you pointed out, Mark, maybe it couldn't have been judged, because like you said, if they didn't show that little excerpt at the very end about it, being based off of BC or whatever, it's a possibility that this could not have been drugs. But I mean, after they put that up there, I was like, okay, this had to have been
Yeah,
drugs. Like,
it's sort of
experimental.
Shut down some interpretations of it. Because given that title card, it changed my impression of the movie. I mean, not absolutely like it didn't give me a complete flip, but as I keep saying,
like a better idea.
Yeah, the movie kept me guessing. I kept coming up with theories. I kept coming up with trying to make connections between things and things whatsoever. And then given the ending where he's, literally on a deathbed, fading away or whatever, and and then the title card comes up. It's like, okay, well, any ideas about the drug sign, were pretty much taken away by that. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you wanted to be really loose with it, you could say, oh yeah, well, maybe that's a red herring, but I don't think so.
Mark, you and your red herrings, man. But you're not wrong though, because there's a part in this movie where I wouldn't say it was a turning point for me, but it was definitely like, all right, I'm starting to have questions. And so, like we mentioned, our thoughts at the end of the movie, I do want to ask you guys what your biggest, I guess, theories or questions you had walking away from this movie after finishing it. And Smith, I will start with you. What was your biggest, I wouldn't even say question, but what's your biggest theory about this movie? What's the biggest thing that you have that's unanswered right now about Jacob's Ladder?
Well, until a couple of minutes ago, I didn't have too many questions, but now because I had really summed it up. Like the whole thing's obviously in his head. His son died before he went to Vietnam. That explains that. So he's on the operating table, and he's just going through his life, and that's fairly evident because of the quote from Louis, the chiropractor, talking about demons and angels and yada yada. It plays twice. Like it's a significant quote.
And it's that's Dr. Carlson, right? That's Louis.
No, Dr. Carlson's dead. But that was the guy that wasn't the guy that cracked his neck at the beginning, right? That was Louis. Yeah.
That was Louis. Okay. So we never saw Dr. Carlson.
Huh?
So we never saw Dr. Carlson.
Nope.
Okay.
All we know about him is that he's dead and he blew up in his car.
He blew up in the car crash, right? I mean, he blew up in the car. All right. So when they said
he
that,
was a psychologist of some sort, or a psychiatrist rather.
Yeah, because all the other the VA guys knew him too, who were also
facts. Okay,
they were all seeing him, then he gets blown up. But that,
So, yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, Smith, but I was just thinking to myself, I was like, God damn. I was like, because that would make sense then, because Dr. Carlson, when he was looking for Carlson, is it Carson or Carlson, whatever. But when he was looking for the doctor, I was a little bit stoned at the time. But anyways, I was watching that scene and he kept looking for Dr. Carson. And I thought that it was the guy that cracked his neck. And that's why I thought he was looking to, kind of like, obviously, you crack your neck, all this shit's going wrong now. Got to go back and then obviously, you get more into the movie and it's way more than that. You know what I mean? So I thought that, him dying and the car blew up. I thought that was kind of foreshadowing what we were going to see later on with old dude, where he stepped in the car and the car blew up. And that part was weird too, by the way. I do want to get into that, but I will go on to you, Mark, about what was your biggest question walking away from this movie, or your biggest theory walking away from this movie?
Well, the thing that I liked about this movie was how it left things open to interpretation. Given that, because I pretty much brought a lot of my own personal beliefs to the film, and I think that's not an accident. Of the creators of the film, the director, and everyone, because, I think that, a lot of people really put a good work into this film. And, as a result, it leaves things open to interpretation and not in like an insulting way either. So, what was fun about it was, although I had these notions, especially when, they had the hospital scene, which like I don't know, I didn't interpret it as hell, at least right away, because when they started telling him, "Oh, you're dead," and all of this stuff, I thought maybe it was just sort of a, because at this point I think too there was like the government ruse and just different things going on. There were so many different ways to interpret that in my mind.
Facts. All Oh, I think did I freeze the
So I
Marquise?
just uh, yeah, but I think yeah, and in the end, okay, am I back? All right, am I
Yeah,
here?
yeah. I can see you here now.
Okay, I'm sorry. Everybody blanked
I
out
didn't
on
know
me.
if I
But
was
anyway,
frozen or what. That's what I was looking. I was like, am I frozen?
oh, okay. No, but either way, yeah. So I mean, given that, um, it's like I said, my feelings about it, like I said, I think ultimately rest on the idea that it was his mind shutting out. Even though that necessarily even wasn't the intention. Had I read, that I read later in the Wikipedia article that you know from the director and the screenwriter, they talked about like this afterlife stuff, and I was like, yeah, okay, that didn't come across strongly for me.
Yeah.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said which part didn't come across strongly for you?
No, oh, okay. Yeah, where like it wasn't in the film. Actually, it was reading quotes from the screenwriter and the director, and even some critics about it, where they were like sort of applying this afterlife aspect to
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
So, and this is where I'm pretty sure that I was just bringing my own personal views into this movie, because I didn't really get that completely out of it. I mean, maybe it was kind of suggested or implied, but I just kept thinking over and over again because of the flashbacks and and just even with the people, like he's just that it was all in his mind, that there was something about his mind that wasn't functioning in a way that would that would have things go linearly for him.
So I'm not going to ask you guys if you could fix anything, what would you do? It because to me it's just not that kind of movie that I want to kind of analyze it that way. I kind of want to
You
analyze it.
have
I
one.
kind of want to analyze this movie a different way. Um, I kind of want to analyze it in a way of what do you guys think? And I know I sort of asked this question a little bit earlier, but not exactly. What do you guys think the director or the writers were actually trying to accomplish with this movie? Like by the end of it, by the time they said, okay, this is going to be the end of the movie and we're going to give this to the people, to the audience, what do you guys what do you think that the interpretation or what they were really trying to accomplish with this story? Smith, I'll start with you.
Well, I know what they're not trying to accomplish, which is spreading awareness about government testing of drugs on military forces. Because I just looked it up, and BZ is still used pharmaceutically today. It it does the opposite of make you violent. It looks like it's like ketamine if you do it in a large dose, or if you did ketamine in a large dose, it'd be similar to this. So you're kind of incapacitated, delirious, hallucinating, but it wouldn't fuck you up like this. So I think that was an afterthought, a little touch of like we're socially aware for the time or whatever, because people were, they still do it.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think they're just it's not so much as a comment on the afterlife, but maybe what leads up to it. Like if you had to live with the decisions you make, and like maybe shit goes through that way.
To me, this was more, again, like I can't just group it into one thing. That's the thing. Like I sometimes I want to call this movie just a sad song, like a very slow. And this isn't a knock or anything. This is actually a compliment to what they were trying to do, to what I interpret what they were trying to do with this movie. At least one of the things, which is they're making a very slow, sad song with this movie, where it's like we're diving into the afterlife a little bit, in terms of at least your mental state in the afterlife, or on your way to the afterlife, if you're, the state of mind, right? but while also diving into PTSD, or just in terms of trauma in general, while also diving into trying to live a normal life while dealing with these things, and still not knowing whether you're alive or not. Because again, we didn't know this dude was thinking about being alive or dead until, I mean, obviously, aside from the Vietnam part, until halfway through the movie, where you started hearing different characters and different people in his life saying, you're dying, or you're dead, or you're going to go to hell, or this person's going to go to hell, whatever. There's so many drops or driplets of like, hey, or nuggets of like, hey, we're gonna give them this, and we're gonna see what the audience kind of thinks after each and every scene of a little nugget that we drop of what is actually going on. But Mark, I want to go to you, man. How do you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's the question.
Oh. So how do you think the directors and the screenwriters, like you mentioned, how do you think they really wanted this film to be viewed? Like what did they really want to accomplish with this film, do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna kind of ruin it and go against what you just said, but if I were to change anything about this movie, it would be to take the title card out at the end. Regardless of, I mean, it made me think differently what Smith just said about it, what he just read. But at the same time, too, I think it changes the movie. And it still seems kind of wedged in. And that's probably what I did, because it's an otherwise thought-provoking movie. And given the aspects of it, the nonlinear aspects, and the emotional weight throughout this film, that it kind of cheapened it. So either way, but otherwise, the movie was, like I said, it was very thought provoking. Because I mean that's what good art does. It can make an emotional response. It can make a thoughtful response. Any type of film should be able to do that on some level. To speak back to what you were saying about like the feelings you got, and especially in terms of his son. The one thing about this movie that kind of makes it interesting is, now I don't know, I was going to ask you guys, like, I don't remember, did he ever give a reason, like a very specific reason why he went to Vietnam? Did he get drafted, or did he just...
I don't remember. The only thing I know about his life before Vietnam is that his son had died.
Yeah, I don't think they did. I don't think they said anything like that. So I mean, it was kind of like, it made me think that was his way of dealing with the trauma of losing his son. And, and then of course the consequences of going into this situation where, we ended up having a great deal of people coming out of that war with serious trauma. So, and this movie was made in 1990. So it's not like it was made years after the war ended. It was more than a decade.
Like 1971 or some shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I think that's really what gave it gravity, though. Because I read somewhere on the Wikipedia that they said, oh yeah, Vietnam wasn't really an intention. It wasn't, it could have been, it wasn't necessarily vital to it. But I'm like, well, you can fucking fool me, because, I mean, if you put Vietnam in there, and, I know this is kind of fading given, like all the wars since then, and the ones were more, they're more present to us. And maybe this is just an old man talking, but, it's just like Vietnam, is always like spoken of and depicted as just something that was incredibly horrible for the people involved with it, and then coming out of it in the years afterward and things like this. So to say, well, yeah, it was just kind of incidental, I'm like, really? I mean, it's 1990, and you're just like, whatever. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like, I wouldn't say that would be like, but imagine coming out with a movie now or writing a story now of where, soldiers were drugged, like you had a whole platoon drugged in 2002 over in Afghanistan or some shit. You know what I mean? Like imagine the perception you would get from the audience, at least from the majority of the audience, right? So look, man, this movie to me is just a never-ending fucking tragedy. That's what it was for me. It was just like from the time the movie opened, and you're thinking, okay, guys chilling around, they're in Vietnam, they're doing their thing, they're fighting wars and shit, and all of a sudden, boom, now they start dying out of nowhere, literally, and then you're like, all right, now we have to get ready for the next 2 hours or almost 2 hours of really fucking with your mind and really fucking with your emotions. And I know I talk about emotions all the time when I talk about movies and shit like that. I'm not a very emotional person. I'm really not. But when you watch certain movies, man, it's just they put you into that. They just put you into this story, and it's how good the story is and how good the storytelling is throughout the movie and throughout the show that makes them tug at your emotions. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things that happens with me when it comes to when I'm sitting down watching a movie or watching a show. I'm very vulnerable. I leave myself very vulnerable when it comes to emotions, but I think it's a good thing. But I want to get to the favorite parts of this movie. So, Mark, I'll start with you. What was your favorite part of Jacob's Ladder?
Well, this is going to make me sound pretty damn shallow after all of what I just said about the film. But, and this is not, this is, not like, throwing away anything else about the film. But the most visually stunning scenes for me, I had two scenes. My first favorite is probably the hospital hell scene, where he's been wheeled through the hospital on a gurney, and those images of body parts and blood and the crushed bicycle. I mean, it looked like a Cannibal Holocaust video. And then other was the party scene where Jezzy's dancing with that guy that's helping her.
Shit. I forgot about that.
It's because it also mentions in the Wikipedia article that one of the big inspirations visually was H.R. Giger, and the painter, and I would have that designed the original Alien in the movie Alien. That scene where she's I think they kind of at least imply that there's something going on underneath her skirt, and it's kind of this really weird, like, is it an animal or a snake, and then it's just like there's something weird going on, and just all of that imagery, and then of course all of the kind of confusion and everything. I mean, once again, and I think that's what you were talking about with how it was able to tug at your heartstrings, was how it gives an immersive emotional experience where that party was from Jacob's point of view, and I felt it. I felt the confusion and sort of the fuzziness, like of how it affects. I don't know, like if I'm in a crowded room with a lot of people talking all at once and everything, and there's loud music and smoke everywhere and all this stuff, like, there's just a certain kind of fuzziness to all of that. So that was so immersive. So those two scenes just really stand out for me.
Yeah, I got to add one thing though. Because you kind of touched on it with the monster. That's the one thing I forgot too, was the monsters. The whole thing with the monsters throughout the movie. Between that, the freaky shit that was happening, that little thing with like I guess it was like It wasn't human. They didn't have any legs, but they were like in that little high chair walker thingy. And it was like it had the fucking mask thing on. And it was just like fucking just going crazy and shit. And then you also had the doctor, right? Which also had Jezebel in there too. That was one of the fucking nurses in the hospital scene too. But you had the doctor that didn't have the eyes and bro. After seeing that ending, like you said, if they did not put in at the end of that movie that, hey, this was, they had to pretty much give you like a whole excerpt of like, hey, this is what happened in Vietnam. They used BZ, the test, you know what I mean? And shit like that. If they didn't give you that part, you would probably think that this is not because of the drugs, because now it opens up a possibility that he was seeing the monsters and all this other shit and Jezebel and the fucking nurse's outfit because he was on drugs, because he got drugged. Now, we don't know that for a fact, or maybe that is like kind of, what the majority of people see or think after watching this movie, but I just can't help but at least think about that. You know what I mean? But Smith, I want to go on to you, man, and ask you, what was your favorite part of this movie?
Yeah, definitely the party scene, and even shortly after that, which was the fever happening, and just the way they handled that. All the dialogue in this movie is very organic, and like, so you're watching that and there's a real sense of urgency when they're trying to get ice, like just like going to her neighbors and shit, which I can't imagine. Pretty crazy talking to your neighbors. I don't.
Hey,
like, well, this is all the ice we got, dude. You're fucked. Guess you're gonna die in the bathtub. And then that was like a seamless transition straight into when he wakes up with Sarah and talks about the dream he just got out of. It's like really well done.
Yep. And I was gonna add on to that because that was my favorite scene of the movie. Just because it flips everything over. It really does. It's like you're thinking that this portion of the movie so far, you're thinking, all right, so now I'm kind of getting a little bit of feel what this movie's about, and then boom, dude wakes up. He's literally repeating what he's saying. Look at her. He said, "Look, bitch, it's fucking cold. I gotta close the fucking window." And then he starts talking about how he's freezing, how he doesn't want to die of pneumonia and all this other stuff. I don't know if he was exaggerating or if he really was dying. I don't know, but he's talking about how he's freezing, blah, whatever. And then, like you mentioned, Smith, like he's talking to the wife and he's telling her, look, I had this fucking nightmare. I was at Jezebel apparently worked at the same worked at the post office as well. So like, and he was talking about, you met her before, we were together in this nightmare dream, whatever. But then you go on into the other scene where he wakes up from the ice bath and he's in the bed with Jezebel. And she's like, you were crying. You were saying how you kept saying, Sarah, close the window. Sarah, close the window. And then she said that you were also talking to your kids. Because remember that scene where he was tucking his kids in bed. And that part to me, I was like, oh, this is definitely my favorite scene in the movie. Like, this is definitely my favorite scene in the movie. Like, this was done so fucking well. And again, this is one of those movies where I'm just like, I'm filled with so many questions. I saw that there's a sequel. Not a sequel, but a remake or whatever the fuck they want to call it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really going to be that good because it doesn't have any high reviews. It came out a couple years ago, and I haven't heard anything about it. I've heard of Jacob's Ladder before, but not that one. So I'm like, I probably won't watch that one. I'm not saying it's not good, but the odds are stacked against it. We'll just say that. There's so many odds stacked against that one that I don't think I would even bother watching it. Maybe on a rainy day, I don't know. But that was my favorite scene of the movie. Is he's laying in bed with Sarah, they're talking, and then the other scene where he wakes up in the ice bath. That ice bath scene was also crazy though. The ice bath scene was crazy as fuck. And even that part where he showed up to the psychiatrist's office, and that lady was like a monster. Like she went to bend down to go get the fucking papers or whatever, and you saw like the fucking like horns forming into her fucking head, like the back of her head or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, bruh, I don't know, man. The ending of this movie really fucked it up for me a little bit because like the entire time I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, this dude's dealing with some serious shit, some serious trauma, blah, whatever. But it's just like drugs, and it's just like, it's like, damn, like was it drugs or was he really going through some shit? Although not supporting drugs or anything to the people out there. I'm not endorsing or anything like that. But some drugs do make you think deeper about life and situations and shit that goes on in your life. That's all I'll say. But again, not condoning drugs or anything like that. Never do that. But this movie was really good for me on a lot of levels. But then that ending where it's like, hey guys, this is what happened in Vietnam, supposedly. And it's like, oh, it could have been BZ. So now we're gonna move on with our grades. This is a very, very, very interesting part of this one because I'm kind of curious on not just what you think, Mark, but I'm kind of curious of what Smith's going to give us, even though you've seen it before. Because again, this is a movie that's very conflicting because it's conflicting with what's happening. Are these his real thoughts? Is he really alive? Did he die? Is Jezebel really a thing? The car blow up scene too, I think was another favorite of mine, by the way, too, where his friend, they're at the pool place or they're at the, what did they call it? Pool hall?
Yeah.
Or whatever. So they were there. They walk outside. Dude gets in the car. Remember when he reaches down to pick up that, was a nickel or quarter or whatever, and it just and then the whole thing happened.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah.
That was one of those parts where I was like, bruh, imagine, again, I put myself in his shoes, bro. I was like, bruh.
Okay, because he reached for the quarter and it suck toward the car.
Yeah.
And then the car exploded.
Yeah.
All right. Is that based on like any sort of like reality about explosions or something? Does anybody know? Because that's what I was wondering. I'm like, wait a minute. Is that really a sign, or is that just sort of another mindfuck thing?
I just thought it was a magnetic ignition device for the explosive.
Yeah. See, I thought it might have been something like that. Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can start a bomb like that. I mean, you probably can in some overly complicated way, but
yeah.
the question is, did he even really die in it? I mean, because what the story is telling us, from what we get from the story, is that this cat didn't really die in a car bomb, in a car bomb anyways. These dudes died on the battlefield, killing each other. So it's crazy shit, man. I'm so glad I was able to watch this fucking movie. I really am. Jaren says, yo, Jaren, what's up, man? This dude always comes in for about the end. But thank you for supporting us. Thank you for supporting us, man. Coming through and supporting us.
He's part of our wrap up,
You gotta look for his comment in like the last 10 minutes of every video. No, Jerry, I'm just fucking with you, man. We love you, man. But so I want to get to the grades now. This is the best part. This is my favorite part of because I'm always curious of what you guys' grades are. So Smith, I want to start out with you. What is your grade for Jacob's Ladder 1990, and why?
My grade for this movie, because it is a classic. I would put it up there with maybe top 10 greatest movies of all time, right? But compared to those other movies, I wouldn't say it's the top of the list at all. So I would give this an A-, which sounds weird because I've given shittier movies higher grades. Not that this movie is shitty. This movie's really well done. But it's just in comparison, if I put that up there with the rest of the greats, right? It's good, but it's not all the way there. Which isn't saying that it's a bad film. It's very good.
What would, I mean, this is kind of a hard question to answer, but just throwing it out there, what would make this film better? I know that would kind of conflict with what I said earlier, but what would make this movie an A for you?
I have no idea. I don't know if you could. It's like the whole the subject matter, like what we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Not that any of it's bad. It's just where it actually ranks up. Like you can only go so far with this.
Facts. I agree with that. So pretty much it's one of those movies where it's like where they did the best they could with what they had, in terms of giving you the elements that they gave you in the story, in terms of, we're giving you some tough situations, and that's the best we can do in the most entertaining way. I fuck with that. I fuck with that. Mark, what about you? What is your grade of Jacob's Ladder 1990 and why?
Well, I think that there are a lot of aspects of this film that could be, could consider it a masterpiece. In the sense of, the direction of the film, and I mean the work of the director and the narrative choices and the nonlinear aspects were pretty bold. Yet at the same time, it's kind of weird to say it about this film, but there was something about it that was grounded too, where it was kind of, it had experimental aspects of the film, but it wasn't a pie or an eraser head or something like that, where the movie's just almost a complete mind fuck and you don't really know what the fuck is going on. So I mean, there's, and I think that's what the thought-provoking aspects about it are. And a lot could be said too about the screenwriting, in the sense of, the choices that were made in how to develop a sense of empathy with the characters. And that certainly comes out in the work of the director and actors performing the roles. I mean, just some of the people, I don't know, Jason Alexander as the lawyer they went to comes to mind. They really brought their A game to it. So this film, and in my view, I mean, I can like really, low budget goofy movies as well, but this was definitely an artful film. However, I'm going to give it the same grade as Smith. I'm going to give it an A-.
Okay.
Minus.
Okay. I feel you on that. I really do. I feel both of y'all on the A-.
Title card thing. Left out. I could have walked away from this film with a different sense of the film, with a few more questions, but they were thoughtful questions. They were good questions, and it tied too much together with that title card. I think that was very, and when card did.
Okay, can you see us, Mark?
Yes.
Hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Did you get it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you get any of that?
Yeah. I got most of it. Yeah. You're kind of lagging a bit. Yeah, you're lagging.
Like I said, just the title card was a bad choice. It took too much out of the film for me. So it's an A-. It could have been higher.
Yeah, and you know what? I feel that, man. I feel that.
Still here? Because,
like I've said before, this movie to me is definitely a never-ending tragedy. If I don't know if you guys, but it's just putting yourself in any position in this movie is going to give you like a fucking anxiety attack, bro. Like, I mean, no one in this movie is safe. And it's weird that we're talking about a movie like this, because I was thinking of more of like a horror element-esque, like a kind of a psychological horror, you know what I mean? Bro, when you get into this movie, you have no idea. Like, this is a movie I would recommend to people for any genre. Like, if someone's saying, hey, man, you know what? I'm looking for movies to watch. I'd say, you know what? Jacob's Ladder. And there's a whole slew of movies. Some of them we've already reviewed on here. That I've watched in the past year or so. That I'm like, you know what? I'll actually just recommend it. You've got, I mean, you've got Showtime that we talked about, which that to me that's definitely a guilty pleasure movie. You've got Isle of Dogs that we reviewed as well, and this movie's up there as well. That I'm like, you know what? If somebody's like, you know what, it's a rainy day, I need something to watch, I'm giving this movie. Now, like you said before, an A+ would be too much for me. An A would be a little bit stretching it, just because there's some things I would need to tweak in this movie. But I'm gonna go with you guys, A-, because it's still a great movie. The content is there, the quality is there, and for a movie that came out in 1990, this holds up pretty well, and this movie aged pretty fucking well. For all that it was given.
Good point.
You know what I mean? Like the fact that we're sitting here talking about this movie in 2021, a movie that came out before I was even thought of. I mean, well, we do that all the time on here, anyway, so I guess that's nothing new. But
in 10 years, people are going to be talking about this again. There's going to be another generation of film panels, and they're going to talk about the same shit.
Yes. And let's hope that they're not talking about it. And the other aspect of there's something that comes out and the government secrets are exposed, that certain groups of soldiers who were drugged in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But yes, I'm going to have to agree with you guys. I will say Mark and Smith, both of you guys together, I took some points from what you guys are saying in your grades, because I was going to give this movie a B+, and I kind of bumped it up to an A- because I'm like, you know what? If someone were to ask me, hey, would you recommend Jacob's Ladder? I without hesitation, I would say yes. So I'm like, I automatically have to give this movie a fucking at least an A-, just based off of the fact that this was a really great watch. But the only reason why I'm not giving this movie an A+ is because like you said, Mark, and this is the point that I took from you that made me put it at an A- instead of B+, is that, it would be one thing if they did take it out, if they took out the whole, hey, this is what it's based off, that last part. And I think that's the most, I wouldn't say controversial, but that's like the biggest piece, I think, the most important piece to what at least you and I have talked about, Mark, about this movie, is that last fucking picture of the movie, that last sentence about what went over in Vietnam. And I'm going to have to put it at an A-, just based off the fact of, I mean, they put that at the end, but it's still open for interpretation. So you know what, I said, you know what, it's open for interpretation still. It still plays a factor in changing your mind a bit, or at least your theories a little bit. But the fact that they're still letting it sit there open for interpretation. From what I know, the director or no one else has come out after the movie has been released and said, hey, this is all you, because you know what directors do nowadays, they have to defend their movie to the death instead of just, hey, I'm gonna let my fucking movie speak for itself. So I that's my grade for this movie. I would recommend this movie to anybody looking for a movie to watch, because although there's some heavy hitting subjects in this movie, it's done in a way where it's not like overdone, or it's not super duper intense or super duper emotional. It's pretty much like, hey, we're gonna make you feel this, and then we're gonna go on to the next scene, and it's, you know what I mean. So that's definitely what I got from this movie, and that's definitely my interpretation of this movie. Any last thoughts on Jacob's Ladder?
I would say you brought it up earlier, and it was like if there was a modern rendition of this, which would be like based in the Eastern theater of war, Middle Eastern, and that's what the remake reboot is like, and it's terrible. So,
you seen it?
I didn't finish it. I watched like 30 minutes and I turned it off.
It's that bad?
It's really fucking bad. And then also there's no equivalent, because back then I think. I mean, the only thing the military's done that's like in the public eye in that time frame was the pills to protect you from sarin gas, which at most would cause birth defects for your future offspring and maybe not make you lose your mind. So it kind of lost that. Vietnam was fucked up because we know people were doing meth over there and like all kinds of shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it really takes it away. Not that we need to talk anymore about the end of that last picture there.
Every time I think about Jacob's Ladder, I'm gonna keep going back to that last fucking sentence they put up there. I'm like, man, imagine, because like Mark said, imagine if they didn't put that there. Imagine if they left it fully open for interpretation. I feel like that would fuck some people up. Still,
the only way that would work, where it would be they'd put that in there, is if they were talking about LSD and our main character Jacob Singer was like CIA and not Army, because all the guys who took LSD in the Army, they volunteered for it, and it was probably the best shit ever because you get to go to work and be high for a day.
Yeah.
So it's like a win-win.
Well, depending on your environment, you might be freaking out. You might be freaking out a bit.
They got videos of it. The British soldiers took it, and they were like on patrol, and they just stopped and started laughing and fucking like sitting in trees and shit. So I think they enjoyed it. I don't know.
That sounds like a fun day at work. That sounds like a very fun day at work. Hey guys, want something? Never mind. Anyways, Mark, do you have anything else to say about Jacob's Ladder, 1990?
Well, one thing I do want to say, which is kind of a correction on my part, or it could be, I don't know, when I was talking about the scene, the hospital scene, and I said, did I say it looked like a Cannibal Holocaust video? Because I meant Cannibal Corpse. Just for the record, that it looked like a Cannibal Corpse video. Because sometimes, just the word. Yeah. So, but otherwise, yeah. No, I think I pretty much said everything I could say about this movie at this point.
Yeah, guys. Look, we over here, we review some pretty some pretty diverse movies, man. Like I think what we went from Nightmare on Elm Street. One time we did Green Room. We did what's that fucking Nazis on the Moon. So
Iron Sky.
Back when we were on the Nazi run.
Yeah.
Like 3 in a row, and then we switched to horror.
Yeah. I mean, dude, we review anything, man. We review anything. So make sure you guys hit that like, that subscribe. Thank you guys for joining us here tonight, here on the HAP Film Panel to review Jacob's Ladder 1990. Stay tuned, guys, because right after this, we're going to be doing another live stream. And this one is going to be the film panel movie news. I guess it's a little subtopic thing that we talk about, but we're going to be talking about Matrix 4. We're going to be talking about Venom 2 being moved, Shang-Chi, soaring in the box office. So make sure you guys just tune right back in right after this here in a few minutes, and we'll see you there. But I am me, ladies and gentlemen. This is Smith. This is Mark Plaid, and ladies and gentlemen, we will see you guys here in a few minutes here on the HAP Film Panel on YouTube. And ladies and gentlemen, we are OUT.